Today we have the pleasure of introducing Jean Freeman from Zambezi. Super excited. And just to give like a quick Reader's Digest of Zambezi, it is a female-owned, multi-award-winning, full agency in LA, and their motto is "Take Bigger Bites."
And Jean has worked at many different types of companies over the course of her career, from small companies and startups up to billion-dollar businesses like Nike, which has helped inform the type of leader she is today. And she believes in walking the walk as a working mother. At Zambezi, she's implemented policies to support working families, including 3 months of paid parental leave, which has led to her being named Working Mother of the Year by She Runs It.
So let's give a big round of applause for Jean. And we're just really excited to hear what she has to share with us today. Let's give it up.
Okay? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the nice intro. Really happy to be here. So I have, as you can see, a presentation really embodying my journey in advertising from being at a company, Zambezi, from its startup phase to now where it's more, I would say, grown-up phase. We still have some growing up to do, but just to share what I've kind of learned throughout that process. And also, yes, this is a presentation, but really this is meant to be a conversation. I'm here to help you. So at any point, there is going to be Q&A at the end, but if you have a burning question that you just need clarification on, or if I'm saying something that doesn't make any sense, then just raise your hand and we'll get through it. Oh, here we go. Technical difficulties. There we go. Is this working now?
Yeah,
is this working now?
Try it out. Yeah,
so I was just at a presentation where there was a little bit of difficulties, and the presenter goes, AI is easy, AV is hard. So there we go. Okay. So for today, really what I want to do is give a little bit of background on myself and my company, Zambezi. And also I thought I'd take the opportunity to really talk about the business model of an agency. A lot of people here are going to be entering into agencies in the next year or two. So, and you're focusing on your craft, strategy, creative, brand management, but the front of the house end product. But really what I want to give you a little bit of purview and texture in is in the back of the house. How money is made, how revenue is generated, and how that process works to get to great work. And then really focusing on entrepreneurship. In talking with Van here, a lot of you have currently expressed the ability or the want to start your own company or start your own agency at some point in your career. So just giving you some pieces of advice that I've learned throughout my journey. And then again, Q&A. All right, so let's get into it. You're like, who is this lady? Why is she here? But really from a standpoint, what I have been doing over the last 10 years is really helping grow Zambezi. We're a creative agency based in LA. I'm gonna give a little bit of texture to the Zambezi origin story and evolution because it really is truly unique story. So I'm the principal, so that means I'm the majority owner. So that means that there's not a larger holding company. I'm the final decision maker for everything that goes on in the company. It's also my name that the banks have in case anything goes wrong. We're a 2-time ad agency, small agency winner of the year. We've been awarded in all the major award shows, and we're a 5-time Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. They hit on some of the recognition that I've won as an individual, which is great, but I think really what I'm most proud of is a few years ago was put on the 4A's 100 People That Make Advertising Great list. And that was really to have the 100th anniversary of the 4A's, which is the largest trade organization for the advertising industry. And really what that did was acknowledge the people that have gotten advertising to where it is today, but it also made room for the people that are building the future of this business. And I'm really proud, and I hope that Zambezi continues to be an emblem of what the future of this business is. And also we're a 5-time largest women-owned businesses in Los Angeles. In terms of associations that I'm involved with outside of just running Zambezi day to day, Entrepreneurs Organization, Young Presidents Organization, the National Association of Women Business Owners, which I've become more and more involved in over the last few years. And I'm on the advisory board for the 3% Movement and Makers. And how I'm here today is I'm on the advisory board of 3% with Van Graves, and we were talking about just the Zambezi journey and story, and he said, you have to come to VCU and tell it to the students. So unfortunately, Van's not here today, but that's because of him and the opportunity that I'm here. So on a personal side, my husband is Chris Rye, who's the founder of Zambezi, and I'll get into a little bit more of that too. We have 2 children. My daughter Madeline is 11 and my son Finn is 9, and we're huge sports fans. I played 3 sports in college. I was a basketball, soccer, and tennis player at Division III. I do believe in astrological aspects of people, so if you look up Capricorn, that's me. Sorry, I can't change. And I would like to say a professional Monopoly player. I'm really good. I have some real big battles with my 9-year-old, but I'm a dismal Word with Friends player, so if you want an easy win, just hit me up. I'm Gene Bean Free. That's my username. Okay, so one of the things that I'm gonna keep on coming back to as we're talking today is the themes of adaptability and resilience. And that, yes, I'm talking about this in a business sense, but I think from a larger life context, these are also great lessons of how we grow and evolve. And the reality is the industry right now is in an upheaval, and I think this group here has an amazing opportunity to help craft what the future of this business is. I'm excited by it. A lot of people are very hesitant by it, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. And my view of adaptability and resilience really started as a child. I lived in 5 different states and attended 8 different schools by the time I was 15. Was born in Seattle, Washington, moved to Chicago, Illinois. My early childhood years, both of my parents are from the Chicago area. Moved to Connecticut, elementary school, middle school, and high school in Kansas City, Missouri, and then finished out in Southern California. Moved there when I was in 10th grade. So moving from suburban Kansas to the beaches of Southern California at when you're 16, that's a pretty big adjustment. But I think that was one of the things that really taught me resiliency and adaptability at a really young age. And I think that was something that served me well as I moved into my business career. So as I said, I went to Carleton College, which is a small liberal arts school in Minnesota. And really, upon graduation of Carleton, I was slated to go into the Peace Corps. My assignment was pushed back towards the end of the summer when I was slated to go, and I just got a little restless, like a lot of 22-year-olds do, of if this is really going to happen or not. My college internships had been at professional soccer teams, and I had always dealt with external agencies in the marketing departments, and they were awesome people. Agency people are people that can figure out how to get it done and have a smile on their face while they're doing it. So I, on a whim, just said, well, maybe I'll stay in Minneapolis and work at an agency. So I researched the best agencies, and at the time, Fallon was. And I was lucky enough to get an assistant account executive position there, and I worked there for 2 years. And the thing about Fallon at the time, it was at its end of independence. Publicis bought Fallon right in 2001, and I was literally like the last account hire that they had before the Publicis started putting down different regulations and standards of hiring. But I worked on United Airlines during 9/11 as an assistant account executive. So I was also exposed to such interesting, but also at the same point, not just only affecting advertising community, but our nation and culture at large. It's also where I met my husband, Chris. Fallon was so special and still is in my heart. It was just great people treated with each other with kindness, regardless of level. And I think that that human aspect is something that we continue to try to keep also at Zambezi today. Even though I had a great time at Fallon, I thought I wanted to go to the brand side. I'd seen what my clients had been doing on the opposite side. I'm like, I think I can do that. So I, like you, getting your master's degree here, went to Northwestern and did that. And upon graduation for that, spent a few years on the brand side at Nike and at Intel. And I think the thing I was thankful about those experiences was it taught me that that's actually what I don't really want to do. I'm more of I'm meant for small environments and really being hands-on. Bureaucracy, I think it's in the way of a lot of things, and I understand that as a larger organization, you need to have process, you need to have ways of getting things done. I spent 2 years at M&C Saatchi at a small agency in LA as Zambezi was getting off the ground, and officially came into Zambezi for the last 10 years. So let me give you a little bit background on Zambezi. So Zambezi was founded in 2006 by Wieden alums, and Kobe Bryant was the primary owner. Kobe at the time was a premier Nike athlete. My husband Chris was the account soup on Nike. I worked at Nike in the Consumer Insights group. And Kobe really wanted to start his own agency. So he approached Chris one day and asked him this. And I think we all know the preeminent campaign coming out of Wieden this year of Dream Crazier. I mean, this is truly an embodiment of this story. Chris came home and said, Gene, you're not going to believe this. Kobe wants to start an agency and he wants me to run it. Isn't that pretty nuts? I'm like, no, it's not nuts. We should figure out a way to do that. So we sold our house in Portland. We were 27 years old. Again, Chris was an account supervisor. Like, we didn't even know what we didn't even know. But we went for it, and we moved down to LA and started Zambezi. During the time when Chris was launching, that's when I was at M&C Saatchi. And I think that also really helped because M&C Saatchi at the time was about a 30-person creative agency, so I really got to see how a small agency operated and what you need and what you don't need compared to a larger organization. I learned a lot of lessons there of what to do and what not to do, and that's how I would have you look at every situation that you're involved in, whether positive or negative. What is being taught, what is this teaching me, and what can I take forward from this? So Zambezi was chugging along for 2 years, had about 5 employees, and then the 2008 financial crisis hit. And literally it was down to the founders. And also about a month left of payroll. The money was running out, and it was getting a little bit from desperate times. And we had the unique opportunity to pitch for vitamin water. And we were pitching against Crispin. So you have an agency that's literally 3 people against Crispin, and we won. And it really, truly saved the company and then propelled the company into its future years of growth. So at that point, we really focused on sports and entertainment. Coming out of the recession, barely surviving, we had to pivot and this was our specialization, and it gave us a point of being. It gave us a point of why we could compete against larger companies. So that really helped propel the first round of rapid growth for the company with clients like Coca-Cola, TaylorMade, which is still a long-standing client of ours, 2K Sports, and Champs. So from 2008 to 2015, we grew from 5 to close to 100. Opened an office in Shanghai. I knew once I opened that office in Shanghai, I could do anything. Whew, oh my gosh, that's for another topic. 2015, Kobe was ending his playing career, was really getting involved more in his business interests, and really what he envisioned Zambezi to be was not what Zambezi was. So we were able to negotiate a buyout and take over full control of the business. And that's really when I entered into, I would say, the front seat of operating the company, because I really focused on negotiating on the financial terms, how we're going to be structured, and just getting it done, because there was also times in any sort of deal that you think you're going to get done and it all can fall apart in a moment. We solidified that in March 2015, and really at that point then expanded our aperture outside of sports and entertainment into modern lifestyle brands, with bringing on clients like Auto Trader, Stance, and The Venetian. In 2016, we opened a new office in Culver City, 26,000 square feet. In 2017, 2018 marked the next evolution of our company now with key executive positions like Chief Creative Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and we also started bringing in media as well. It's a new offering that we started in 2018, which is now our fastest growing part of our business. And then in 2019, we did I would say our most high profile launch that we did was a global launch for Beats, for their new Power Beats Pro. So that's just a little bit of the origin story and the meandering way that this company has grown. If you haven't been to our website, this is a little bit of a preview of our redesigned website. We did this in-house with our tech team, and something that I'm really proud of. I think it really shows our personality, which is very important to me, but also the evolution of the creative and also top creative. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. So what I thought I would do is I would give you just a little bit of snapshot on our new business credentials. This is how Zambezi presents ourselves when we go into a new business meeting. it's cut down, but I think it just gives you context specifically on the selling portion of what we do. So hello, client of our future. Nice to meet you. One of the things that we do is we are a relationship-based agency, and we like to be treated as partners, and we have that type of language in through here that makes it, I would say, very approachable. We are an independent, female-owned, full-service, award-winning agency, and our name comes from the Zambezi shark, which is one of the most adaptable animals on the planet. It can go from freshwater into saltwater. And again, it's highly adaptable, and so are we. I think it's a great embodiment of not only that where we are in advertising and needing to be adaptable, but also the idea of just constantly, you're never done, you're never finished. And I think in today's time, it makes a lot of sense. And really at our core, what we do, why we do it, is the idea of taking bigger bites, the idea of generation impact disproportionate to spend, to create marketing that moves the needle and elevates the discourse, and to introduce people to great brands they should have in their lives. So it ties back to the idea of the Zambezi and the Zambezi shark, which is also one of the most aggressive animals on the planet, but we like to say we're like nice aggressive. So here are some of our partners. We're lucky to work with a really great array of partners, all the way from Fortune 50 companies down to private emerging companies. This is something that we've been building over the past years, and specifically with our media offering, it's been allowing us to work with a different level of clients, like World Surf League. And this is a slide where we brag about ourselves and all the awards we've won. Depending on the new biz pitch scenario, sometimes we show this, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's a voiceover. There are brands, and that awards are important. And I think that's also the judge of when you're working with a potential client. It's not necessarily what the brand is. It's who's on the opposite side of the table. Are these people that are going to be good people? Am I going to like to be working with them and going through lots of back and forth on ideas? So, but I think from an array of awards, everything from a Webby to Ad Age Small Agency of the Year. And in terms of capabilities, we are a full service agency. So from brand strategy, cultural insights, world-class creative development, comms planning, media planning, and buying. We are starting to do more high-level brand consulting with helping brands just even understand whether it's naming and design. We do have a female insights engine called Zambezi X, and then our internal content studio. So I thought I'd show, this is just a little bit of like a sizzle overview of Zambezi, our culture, and our clients.
My program, you'll be able to go hard and then also go home. And even if you don't go hard, still go home. It's where you live.
There's pie in the kitchen.
Still getting it.
thank you. We worked hard to get there. But even more so, I want to bring it back to the adaptability and resiliency. I don't want you sitting there thinking, oh my God, how do they do that? Well, I just explained it. It took 13 years to get there. This just didn't happen in the last month. So again, adaptability and resiliency of always continuing to push forward. And yes, we are very proud of the work that we have. And also, I think, one of Dan Wyden's famous quotes is when someone asks him, what's your favorite campaign? He says, the next one. So I think you have to have that perspective of like, I'm not done here. We're going to continue to do more. All right, this is the fun part, okay? Business model of an agency. How many people plan to work in an agency upon graduation? Nice, okay. So I've been given some feedback from my people, just so you know, because I find this very exciting, because this is what I do every day. I spend a lot of time in spreadsheets. And you're focusing on your craft. But I just really think this gives an overview of how an agency runs and operates, and I think can give you more just texture when you're entering into different types of environments. All right, so what's the greatest asset of any advertising agency? Guys, gosh, you guys are so smart. Okay, yeah, so no, it's not creativity. What is it? It's ideas from people. Okay, 100%. You guys are probably going to know all the stuff that I'm going through. So if you know it, then just take a little snooze. So basically, the idea is we are a service business, and yes, there's a lot of talk about the fact of like how we're all going to be replaced by robots. I think that's total bullshit. We're not going to. Creativity needs to come from people and always will. And so agencies need people. We do. That's what our lifeblood is, to come up with creative. And agencies need to be hired by brands and clients. So, but how does that work? How does that process start to go? So if Coca-Cola wants to work with Zambezi, what do? They just like pick up the phone and say like, hey Gene, you want to work on the spring campaign? And we're like, sure. Well, sometimes if you're lucky, that is a great way because you don't have to spend a lot of time going back and forth. But usually it all starts with an RFP. Now, I have, if you guys remember one thing from this presentation, it's this. I'm giving you the key to agency acronyms and everything that you will be exposed to when you start. Because we talk in acronyms, and everyone's like, finally, the brave people are whispering like, I don't know what an SOW is. And how I started, this was what I really started talking with Van about, because this is a presentation that's a takedown that I gave specifically to our creative department, to give our creative department context on what the hell the finance department and account is doing in the other room when you're concepting. So this is all this is. This is just larger context. So I'm going to go through this very quickly, and then it also just goes in with the idea of like the flow of the process. All right. So in terms of new business, a lot of terms that you'll hear is an RFI, request for information. So that's when a brand will send literally just a laundry list of data that they need from an agency, where your offices are, who the people are in charge, who your current clients are, non-compete. It's nothing proprietary from creative ideation. It's literally just stuff that they could find on our website if they weren't so lazy. But anyways, so you go through that, and then if you make it onto the next phase, you will receive what's called an RFP, which is a request for proposal. And a lot of times that then embodies some sort of proprietary information, whether it's strategic, whether it's creative. What we like to do from an RFP is that if there's not any dollars attached to it, where they're going to pay us for our IP that we're passing on, we'll usually say we need to own the IP, or we'll say go talk to somebody else because we don't work for free. So these are new business terms that you might hear from the new business team as things come in. So let's say we submit our RFP to Coca-Cola for the spring campaign, and they're like, Zambezi, yes, we want to work with you. And we go, yay! And so then what we do is we create an MSA, which is a master service agreement. This is a long legal document that really is very boring, and I won't go into all the details, with things like liability, insurance, but important stuff like ownership of IP and specific rules and regulations around that. All right, so the lawyers go back and forth. How long are we going to, what are the payment terms? Are there upfront money for production? A lot of things that are very important in order to create effective creative. Imagine if you don't have production billing terms and you're going to on a shoot and it's a $2 million shoot and you haven't stipulated that the client has to pay you in advance for it. Well, then the agency has to float that money. Shit, we haven't thought that through. I learned that lesson too. So this is why this is really important, and also to work specifically with lawyers that have focus in communications and advertising. Okay, so you finally get that figured out. Now you go on to a scope of work. A scope of work outlines specifically what you're going to do for the spring campaign. We are going to do 2 months of research, and then we're going to do 2 months of creative ideation, and then we're going to do a month of production. The scope of work is very specific to the deliverables that are going to be encased within that. This is also then where you say the staff plan. Who's going to work on it? And then I'll go back to that. But so I'll go a little bit more into the staff plan in a second. But so then that is agreed upon. You're moving forward. So now you're actually in the fun process. You're doing what you're doing now. You're solving marketing business problems. You're solving marketing business problems. And so you're going through that process with the clients. Some common acronyms that you will hear: IMC, Integrated Marketing Communications. That's a common thing on the brand side. A lot of times, if you're Coca-Cola, you will have a brand manager. A brand manager really has more of a fiduciary duty to the product. But they will be paired in tandem with an IMC brand manager, which is really focused on communications. And I think that's a really thing that took me a while to understand within corporate organizations. A brand manager isn't necessarily a communications expert. So I think that's also something to kind of vet for you, for those who are thinking of going to the brand side, understanding how those brand teams are structured, because a lot of times brand managers they get an MBA. And that I received a similar degree that you all are receiving, a Master of Science, because I didn't want to get a traditional MBA. I was really intrigued more by the communication and the consumer insights into why marketing decisions are happening. So that's just something to be aware of for those of you who are interested in going to the brand side. KPI, this is a favorite one from a client's. Key performance indicator, okay? So that really means how you're going to be judged from a success of the campaign. It can be sales, which is sometimes really difficult to translate into marketing, but also things like brand awareness and things like that. And then core creative idea, a lot of times can be used as the idea of like the overarching idea of the campaign. What is the big idea, large idea? CCI. All right? So how does an agency make money though? Okay, it really comes down to pricing on a staff level. We're a service business. And so basically every person that's in the building has a bill rate that's attached to them. And if you want to know how it's calculated, I can tell you later. I was talking to my team, they're like, oh my God, please, Gene, don't put that in, no one cares. But what it comes down to is full-time equivalent, an FTE. So that's what you'll hear a lot of times, specifically on the account side, talk about, well, the client's only paying for 25%. 25% FTE of a strategist. This is what they mean, a full-time equivalent. This is also why you have to fill out timesheets to make sure that you're doing this amount of work that the client is paying for. So here's an example of an FTE calculation that would be presented to a client. Okay, so you see that rate card line? That's what I'm talking about with the FTE. All right, so it breaks down by different departments, their FTE percentage, which translate into the specific amount of hours and their bill rate. And then you figure out the monthly terms. Some clients bill monthly, sometimes they bill quarterly. But this is like, your work is creating the outwardly facing of the product, but this is how the sausage gets made. You can't even get to the point where you're briefing teams and doing research until all of this has been signed off on. So it's just context for you as you're going through this process. So the larger document where all the financials are held and looked upon is called P&L, which stands for profit and loss. And it's as simple as it kind of sounds. You have money that's coming in, things like fees in production, and things that have to go out in terms of cost of goods, salaries, and overhead expenses like rent and benefits, and all the endless snacks and things like that. Okay, so here's an example of a P&L where it's just broken down. You have the revenue streams on the top, you have expenses in the middle, breaking down all the things that get taken out, and then it's left with net earnings. So this is a lot of what I do. I focus on this because I'm looking at a macro picture and I'm looking at trends in the P&L. I'm looking at it by clients, seeing trends of how things are billing. But this just gives you a larger context of, from an operations standpoint of how an agency runs and operates. So see this process, we just kind of outlined from RFP to MSA to SOW to IMC. And hopefully, if it's a returning client, you skip the RFP part and you can just go straight back to an SOW. You don't need to do an MSA, so you're just kind of going back and forth. The thing that can be, now remember what's our theme? Adaptability and resilience, okay? We make it so difficult on ourselves when we work so hard from a new business perspective to get in the door, create agreements, do the work, and then nothing comes, it's a one-time thing. That is where we get ourselves into trouble. So it's, while all of this is important, really at the end of the day, all of the back office operations is in service of the work. And if it's not in service, then this cycle is always just going to be inefficient. So it's just something I want to kind of reinforce and let you know. Any questions on that before we go into entrepreneurship? Yeah.
Going back to the Excel spreadsheet you had, kind of the billing for each position, I noticed the senior strategist just had 0 across the boards. Is there any reason why that was, while everyone else had something?
So,
right here.
So yes, your question was, why are they not paying for strategy?
Senior strategists.
Well, this is a hypothetical example.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously you're a strategist, don't worry, but but I can't tell you how many times I've heard from a client to be like, I don't want to pay for strategy. So who's going to defend you and your ability and the reason why? Usually it's the account group. That's the role of selling. And a lot of times that's a difficult sell of explaining to a client why they need to have certain levels, because again, it's money out of their pocket, but that's where the negotiation comes back and forth. So this is an example of how something goes, but usually there's iterations of it going back and forth multiple times.
Maybe could you, on top of that, could you talk about the fees part of it? Like, is that their, like the $99,000 for like a junior art director, isn't it? Is that their salary? Or is that their salary plus a percentage of the fee that you would need to take into effect for rent and utilities and all that?
Yeah, you got it. Are you talking about the rate card number? Yeah, so that was...
The fee card mm-hmm. So like $99,000 isn't exactly their salary, but it might
No, that's the total amount of hours. So the second row is the hours. So that's the hours they're going to work on this particular project. And then and then the rate card is 2 over.
One more question.
Yeah.
There was some point in your business where the clients didn't demand this much transparency in terms of, right? In terms of knowing exactly how many hours everyone needs. Like,
yes.
So
that's
just when you hit a certain threshold, then you have to be more transparent.
Yes. So there's a lot of conversation in the industry right now about saying how the FTE model is dead. Okay? So I don't think it's dead. This is how we price ourselves. We price ourselves based on people's level, and that is based on salary plus an overhead margin plus a profit margin. That was the spreadsheet. That was the explanation that my team. So, oh my God, please don't show them that. But that is how things are calculated, and so that really is a scope management is part of what a strong account lead does. If we're trending high in strategy based on X, Y, and Z, sometimes it's because of deliverables that clients are requesting that are out of scope, versus sometimes it's inefficiency on our sides. You know, like if we can't agree and we're going round and round on a strategic approach, that sometimes it's difficult then to argue for the client that they should be paying more. But that's what we normally have quarterly calls set up with our clients to let them know how they're tracking on scopes. And we need to be as transparent as possible. And this is the same way how we price media too. Media historically has been priced based on a commission. So if you think about a commission, what's the incentive if your income is based on commission? You want to sell as much shit as possible. Okay? So that's been the fallacy about media up until this point, is that the more that they spend, the more that they get paid, as opposed to what's most efficient for the client's media spend. So our media, how we price it, is based on an FTE model. So whether they're spending $2 million or $5 million, I mean, there's going to be slight because there's going to be some changes, but not to that significant degree if you were charging by a percentage. Those are good questions.
Can you explain the circle again?
The circle? Oh, yes. So the circle, RFP, that represents the business coming in. So you don't have it yet. It's a new client that could be coming in. Let's use Nike. Everyone wants to work on Nike. Nike comes in, you go through the new business process, yay, we want it. So now you go negotiate with Nike for MSA. That determines the terms of how you're going to work. An SOW is a specific project. So you're going to work on the women's marathon launch. And then the IMC is actually the strategy and the creative and the production hours. That's the output of that. So we redesign Nike's women's site in order to encompass marathon messaging. They like the work that you did in the IMC, so then they're going to go back and say, hey, can you draft another scope of work for the men's marathon? So that's how it works. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, Entrepreneurship 101. How many people think that they want to own and run their own business in the future? Nice. All right. Well, listen up. You snoozed through the last section, pay attention to this one. All right? So I love this Mark Twain quote because it really, I think, encompasses what entrepreneurship is about. The secret to getting ahead is just getting started. You've got to start at some place. But what I want to frame it up here is, what are the things that you need to take into consideration in order before you start? So I'm going to use a Simon Sinek what, how, why as an example of how, from a brand perspective, and using a brand truth, it's very similar with vetting an entrepreneurial idea. All right? So here we go. The what is the market opportunity. What are you talking about? And this requires a lot of due diligence. This requires due diligence of information that is out in the open, whether it's current competitors. It's like what you're doing from a SWOT analysis, what you do with brands. You do that with possible competitors that are currently in this space. And I think the most important thing is, what's your point of differentiation? What are you bringing that you're very good at that can be viewed as a unique selling proposition? USP. Oh, that's another one. I should have put that one in there too. Okay, so how? That's a business model. It's the inflow and the outflow. It's a little bit similar to the P&L that I showed you before. Because this is a service business, it requires employees. So you're going to need to forecast what's going to be your cost. And usually what we do from a forecasting standpoint is you should forecast for 3 years of operating expenses. Build it out, because that's really the place to start from, of like, this is the capital that I'm going to need in order to go into this. And then also the process of how you're going to get business. So this is I actually have a friend who is thinking about starting an agency. So I had built this model for myself, for Zambezi. So this is just the front page. This is just the cover sheet of it. But this kind of gives you a little bit of a snapshot on how you can look at viability from an income perspective versus operating expenses, which is an acronym. The acronym for that is OPEX, okay? Operating expenses. So that's basically like all the things that cost money. But splitting it out from like, okay, this is our confirmed fee revenue. What do I have that's unconfirmed? Bringing up total income. The OPEX sheet was a whole other sheet which has a breakdown of all of the costs from from overhead costs to direct costs, and then you can see the net income. Okay? He's not looking so good here, $1 million loss for the first year. So we're gonna need, oops, I just touched the screen. We're gonna need to work on that. So that's kind of how this process starts. It's very iterative, and you're testing different things to kind of see what's needed. I mean, he needed to come back to earth, which I helped him do. Technical difficulties again. I touched the screen. Oh, help. Press the what? Thank you. Okay, yeah. So this is how we get it done. Do I have to do that the whole time? Okay.
And I guess like in the future, just do that.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay. Yeah. All right. Sweet. Thank you. That's how we do it. We do teamwork, guys. Okay. But this is the thing, and the why part took me a long time to understand that it really, truly is the most crucial aspect. Why does the world really need another X? What are you truly the best at? And I think most importantly, why should I care? A lot of times when you're starting a business, you see a need in a marketplace, but that's, again, it's the how and the what. It's really more of the why. And what I've found over the years, the why is critical, just not only for business, but it's for your culture of your company. Why are you doing what you're doing? You know, we spend majority of our time in our lives working. Why do you want to create a place for people to come and be together? What are you going to add a dimension to their lives? So I always love to, I think this encapsulates this really well. And it's really old, and I'm sure you all seen it, but I'm going to make you watch it again.
Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried a few years.
So there's a lot of continuity and benefits that you can get from a marketing aspect, but then also from looking at your overall business plan. And so from our standpoint, our why is taking bigger bites. And that, again, it took us a while to really get to that and having that become something that we could discuss and really hang our hat on. And I think it really is from a standpoint of like 90% of marketing, it's horrible. We skip it, we don't want it, it's being interrupted. And I think it's being honest about that, of like, you're gonna have to do things to stand out. So that's the ethos of taking bigger bites. So, bringing the what, the how, and the why all together. This is pretty much your pitch deck. Investor deck, business plan. It has a lot of different kind of names, but you're outlining your service and your offerings, the team and your income, and you're defining your purpose for being. Okay, so let's get started, all right? One of the things that's super critical with starting a company is who are the owners and who are the partners. Varying skill sets and diversity are essential. It's a requirement. If you're 3 copywriters wanting to start an agency together, that's probably not the best idea, because there's nothing to complement that. And in fact, I've seen a lot of creative-only shops have a lot of trouble because they have too many creatives at the top, which then leads to issues on clear agreement on decision-making ability. And you do need people that complement one another. And I think that's one of the reasons why Chris and I have made such a great team over the years. Chris is very involved in new business and selling and also involved in the creative product. I focus a lot on the business and making sure that we're running an efficient business that is going to be here for the long term. If I have an account background, and I could be an account person, but if I had to be an account person underneath Chris, it would have been a total disaster. So I think it's that idea of ability to make decisions on what. Our chief creative officer, I give him the purview to make creative decisions. I will give my input from time to time, and very rarely do I have an issue. Very rarely do I have something where I'm like, that's a no-go. I think that's happened like 2 times in the 3 years that we've worked together. So again, it's having that trust and that ability with your partners. And then I would also say for partners looking at it from a future-proofing your business. What worked for your business right now, but what's going to be really needed in the next 5 years. Revenue. Again, this is a business. We are creating art in service of commerce. It's not art only, but sales responsibilities, who's going to be in charge of that? New business and selling there's a nuance to it. So making sure that someone has that responsibility and that you're setting targets. Again, like, my friend that put together his kind of plan, and you kind of saw how it was the income was just what he wanted from expenses didn't match up with the income. So it's like making sure that you have realistic income projections that can lead to longevity of the company. Majority of companies fail because of cash flow. And I'm not getting into cash flow here today because it's like a whole nother dynamic of the financial system. But basically, it's cash. And when cash runs out, you either have to sell equity in order to get more cash, or if you don't have any equity left, then it just becomes a dilution game, and you're not in control anymore. So cash flow is super critical. Funding. How are you going to start this business? Do you have money to start it from a bootstrap perspective? VC, we've heard there's a lot of articles right now talking about VCs. The WeWork situation is really unbelievable. We can talk about that at lunch. But our industry, from a VC perspective, it's not very common to have investments from the VC standpoint because they're looking for such rapid growth and also really looking for some sort of proprietary technology that can easily become that can grow without putting on added infrastructure. VCs are invested in MarTech, in marketing tech platforms. I would say that's the one part of our industry that they are involved in. Private equity, it's just another way, it's as opposed to like a bank, which is basically an institution that has rules and regulations from a state government and a federal government. PE is basically a bank with no regulations. So I think there's going to be some changes on the PE side in the next few years, but there have been more agencies that have been funded through PEs. Usually they're pretty well established and mostly creatives, 20 years experience. And Zambezi is an example of a bootstrap company. We don't have any outside investment. We've always generated more income than we spend, and we've been very conservative from that standpoint because at the end of the day, what I have always wanted is to have control over anything else. And then you have an emergence of new era holding companies, little like micro networks that are looking for really just to kind of compete against the current existing holding companies, which are, it's an interesting time when you have the 5 largest holding companies really having a lot of consolidation. It provides an opportunity for small independent startups to really take a hold and grow a business. All right, any questions on those? Nice, all right. All right, here's my startup advice, okay? All right, I just wrote a white paper about entrepreneurship in the Instagram age, and a lot of times we think it's very glamorous, and really it's more like the Fire Festival. So, it really requires that type of mindset of, yes, there might be some sort of gain at the end of the road, but the road could be 15 years. I mean, again, like we're 13 years into building Zambezi. I've been there for 10 years, and it took us a long time to get to the point where we could not be really just kind of figuring out what we're doing from year to year. But yeah, this is, I love this kind of dichotomy because it really is true. Because also, startups are chaos. This is my daughter. She's 11 now, so I got her approval for this photo. But I think this just really kind of encapsulates what startups are like. You're drinking from the fire hose or just eating directly from the cereal box, and you're losing a shoe. What's going on? Like there's torn up, is it toilet paper in the back? Like I'm not even sure what's happening in this photo. But I thought it was a good accompaniment of showing like what startups are and kind of the mentality that you need to have. And my piece of advice that I have for anyone that's thinking about starting a business or eventually you want to, if you have an internship opportunity, really try and work at a startup because it can give you a texture and it can give you a perspective of like, oh my God, wow. And then you can find out if that's right for you or not. And it might be right for you, but just then realizing like how that company was operating in X, Y, and Z way, you could do it X, Y, and Z way. And one of the things that also for smaller, larger established companies have a way of working, and they have a way of working because they need to. But startups operate just very chaotically. So if you haven't exposed yourself even to just, they have, like incubators where they have like contests and like hackathons and things like that. Just even those types of high intensity types of environments, I suggest you try and just get a taste of what it is because that's really what it's like. And then the importance of networking. Really, I think every sort of opportunity and also client business that Zambezi has gotten, majority has been through our network. It hasn't been, the power of networking really is palpable. And a lot of people think, well, how do I build my network when I don't have a network? You are now in school with 200 amazing people. And you all will be running agencies, divisions, brands within 10 years. So you all should be a group together and continue to support and grow with one another. I think that's one of the things that I wish I did a little bit more when I was at Northwestern. I kind of isolated myself a little bit, but now everyone's off doing amazing things, and I have reconnected with a lot of them, but there are simple ways of starting networking. And I would encourage you to, like, I'm going to be around for a few hours after here. If you have a question, please come talk to me. I'm really available. I love to make myself available, specifically for students that have questions. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will be available and help you in any way that I can. So the other, I love this photo. Be prepared for lots of mistakes, because there inevitably are going to happen. I think one of the things, too, that we get in a mindset, specifically within school, we're in a school mindset right now. So it's a linear way of operating. You've got classes on X, Y, and Z days, group projects due, grade, everything like that. The Entrepreneurship world is it's test by fire. You're just figuring out as stuff gets thrown at you. And I love this Bill Gurley quote, who's a very successful VC. Good judgment comes from experience, which comes from bad judgment. So I think giving yourself the permission to know that you're going to make some mistakes is part of it. And to not have it be an inhibitor of when you make a massive mistake, to be like, fuck it, I'm not going to do this anymore. Because that resiliency is really going to be the thing that you need in order to progress. So just don't worry about it. Just remember, when you have a big mistake, you can say, Gene told me so, right? Gene told me this was going to happen, and now I know what to do. And I also think from idea, this is being prepared for pivots. And as I love to say, like Netflix started off as like a mail to your house DVD. Like now no one even has a DVD player. But I just think that is the world that we live in. And the creative process can be very specific. No, I do it like this. This is the way. In my just view, I think the approach to creativity is evolving, and I think VCU is doing a really great job of that. And I think that's what some of the things that the advertising industry is having a hard time evolving, because they're so used to how things have been done. This is the process, and this is how we do it. And why consultancies are now starting to come in and really play a part and take over some advertising business. Because a consultancy mindset, it's not, this is how we do it. This is what needs to be done in order for the best output for your business. So a lot of times when we approach pieces of business, we will put different types of plans together because it's not a one size fits all. So then this requires flexibility for the pivots. Okay, so I'll end on this. So again, this is kind of like the Instagram Fire Festival situation. But it's just the idea of success is like an iceberg. It's what people see. And what people don't see is, you know, the persistence, the disappointment, how much sacrifice you have to give. So when Zambezi was scaling in about 2007, so from 2007 to Maddie was born in 2007. So 2008 to 2015, 7 years, I pretty much worked 2 full-time jobs. I was helping scale Zambezi as a chief operating officer, and then my family also has a successful paper and stationery business that's based in Orange County that's called Blue Sky. And they're sold in mass market retailers like Walmart and Target. So from 2007 to 2015, I was head of the licensing division for Blue Sky. My dad started Blue Sky 20 years ago when he was 55. And I was working all the time and had 2 small kids and was just determined because both of the businesses had so much potential. But I sacrificed a lot in order to get the businesses to that place. Friends, forget about it. But, there was times where I forgot about my health. I was a very active athlete, and I had to really remind myself that I needed to get back into it. I went through periods where I was just petrified to speak in public, even though I was a debater all through high school. And you want an argument? Come talk to me later. I'll give them a good one. But I just think the idea of I don't want anyone to view from a standpoint that I have all the answers, because I don't. And also from the belief that for me, yes, Zambezi and my company and me have had tremendous success, but you got to work on it every single day. And that's something that I'm going to continue to do too. So I just want to kind of, wrap that around there's a lot of things that people don't see when a company or a person becomes successful. And I think this is also very key for you to think about if you want to start your own business. The word success, and what does that mean for you? Because there's a lot of ways to have success. Or you want to start a business to have your own work-life balance. 90% of women-owned businesses are sole proprietorships, which means they just work for themselves. They don't have employees. So a lot of what a lot of freelancers are doing now. Freelancers are they're incorporating to have a system around themselves. So because there's tax benefits for doing that, but they want to do that because they don't want to work in an office from 9 to 5, and they want to be able to work where they want to, and so that's why they're starting their own business. Some people are starting their own business because they want to just be on the growth train and they want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. Cool, great. And some people want to just have control. They want to have control at all ends. And from my standpoint, Zambezi could have scaled a lot quicker had I brought in other partners at certain times, but I chose not to because the thing that was most important for me was to have control of the business. So I think that's also something for you to think about. If you want to start your own business, why do you want to do it? And also, these things can change from time to time too. You can start off having you want to have a work-life balance type of thing, and then you come into a successful, and the company's growing really quickly. And then that's the time then when partners become the key component of kind of how you want to structure it. Okay, so that's startup. So now your company is growing. Yay. Now what? If you're one of the few, I think 75% of companies fail before year 3. It's very difficult to get past year 3 from a business standpoint, but you've made it. So this is just a few kind of hits on what I would say grown-up advice. Okay, so now you know when to say no. When you're starting out, you're saying yes to everything. You're like figuring out what to do. Again, it's like swarm ball soccer. You're like, yes, we'll do it. But when you get to a certain degree, there's growth can also be a culture killer. And the Steve Jobs quote, which really makes sense, is deciding not what to do is important as deciding what to do. And in 2016, we had a really unique position to pitch Uber. And Uber at the time was, it's different now, thankfully, but it really would have been, again, it would have put Zambezi in another echelon. And we went into the pitch, and it was just a horrible experience for everyone. Just the way that they were treating people, it was not conducive to good business. And I think the thing that really sealed it for us is when our 2 day-to-day clients were just fired, and then no one explained it to us why. So we backed out of the pitch because we just knew at the end of the day, while it might be great to put it on our masthead, no one's going to want to work on it. And if people who are going to work on it, they're going to leave because it's miserable. So sometimes you have to make those tough calls because you have to do what's right for your business. Different people at different stages. And this is a tough one. The shift from generalist to specialist. Again, when you're starting off, everyone has to do everything, and you kind of get used to that. And then when you reach a certain stage, this is usually around 50 people. When you're 50 people, you're like a mid-size company. And in fact, I still at times I operate in a small business mindset. I view us still as a startup from time to time, and I catch myself with the decision making that I'm doing. That's what a startup would do. That's not what established mid-sized company would do. But really, that shift from generalist to specialist. We brought in a chief creative officer 2 years ago. We had never had one before. We brought in a head of strategy only 4 years ago. So we were almost for 7 years operating like a production company. We weren't even operating like a creative agency because we were just still stuck in this, let's just kind of do everything. So I think this is a key thing, and one of the things that's really helped us in evaluating this is having an outside executive coach. I work with an executive coach that helps me to understand my own blind spots, because I have some, I know, shocking. But and know when I'm kind of putting off decisions. And it's also a sounding board for someone who's impartial. And again, I think it's like that idea of like having your own personal board of directors is also very critical that you can have to bounce ideas off of. And I think the thing is also when you're going to become a larger company is embracing process. Process does not have to be the enemy of progress. In fact, times it can really help take things to the next level. And if you don't have a strong foundation, growth can't happen. So if you don't have systems in place, it's funny, I was talking with a friend who's currently at Facebook, and Facebook, you would think that they would have more systems and process than they do. But so that's really what he's been focused on, is establishing process. And then in closing, I would also just really idea that I never forget your humble beginnings. And this is a framed print that I have from a friend who started a company, made it to year 4, but not past year 4. From humble beginnings come great things. And I think the idea of what I continue to try and do is always have the startup mentality, but not necessarily have it portrayed in how, like I said before, with, not thinking like a startup all the time, but being really thankful for the opportunity that you've gotten to help and grow and scale a business. And that's it.